What was that first spot that you broke out of in the comedy?
What I did is I knew about All Jokes Aside, which was the premier spot. It's one of the greatest comedy clubs in the history of black comedy. And there's a documentary people should check out called Funny Business of Black Comedy, and funny is spelled PH. But I went to a place called the Close Up Piano Bar the night before because it was a smaller joint and it was off the radar just to practice. Tried it, it went all right. And then I went home, practiced in the mirror as everybody does. But that night I met George Wilborn. Oh, wow. And George the house MC at All Jokes Aside. He happened to be there working out is what we do on open mic. Also, what he didn't know, and I had never met him before, but he's my first cousin.
Wow.
Yeah. But my father had told me he had a nephew that's doing stand-up. And I'm like, well, that's cool, And then it just happened he was there. So he walked me through the door at All Jokes Aside, got me on the mic, got me on the list, and we bonded immediately. And you would think we grew up together. So that's how I got in the game.
Wow. Now, have you always had that sharp, clean-cut image? Because I've seen photos of yourself and your pops. And you guys are some sharp dudes, you know?
Pops,
so is that something? Because every time we see you clean, you know what I mean?
Well, especially early on, man, because I came up in the Def Comedy Jam era, which is also a very hip-hop era. It was the cross colors and the baggy, oversized clothes and stuff like that. But I felt like people respected you more when you wore a suit. So at City Hall, I wasn't an alderman or an executive or a council member, but I know that people saw them walk through the hall in them suits, and they couldn't differentiate me from them if I dressed like that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
They say you dress the part for the job you want, you know. So I decided to go that way on purpose. And then it's show business, so you should be dressed better than your audience, especially back in those days, because they paid money to see you then, So that's how I ended up getting the Kings of Comedy tours, because they all wore suits. And that's another interesting story we can get to at some point. Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Well, what is that story? That's interesting because I love the segue because I was going to bring that up a little later on.
That's what I said.
But I think that is a great segue into it because a lot of people do know the Kings of Comedy, and even some of the young folks, they don't even know who the Kings of Comedy are.
Right.
Because obviously, rest in peace, Bernie Mac.
Indeed.
But I think that you being on the front line of it and having a bird eye view and being a part of it, from the Def Comedy Jams to the Comic Views to the Kings of Comedy. Yeah. You're not some new guy. So
and that's the progression. Actually, Comic View launched my career in '94. It was a competition at the time, and I didn't win the first time. And I went back in '96 and I won. Then I got an hour special. Cedric the Entertainer was the host of my episode. So that's me. Me and Sid had already bonded at All Jokes. Because the thing about All Jokes Aside, I got a chance to, meet and bond with some of the greats of the business because they all came there. So they knew me. So they were looking for opening acts in each city because the original Kings of Comedy was Guy Torrey was hosting. Steve was the headliner. Bernie was in the middle. Sid was the first guy. Well, it wasn't working out. And Steve had just told Shannon Sharp on his
I saw
thing.
that.
He's like, man, they was putting it on me. I had to go up last every night. And Bernie Mac ain't nothing easy to follow. So they changed the rotation. Then they added D.L. Hughley. Now Steve was the host. But Steve being the host, he's still Steve Harvey. So he ain't trying to come out first to an empty, a cold house or people still being seated. So they needed an opener for that. But they thought they could just find a comedian in every city and just throw somebody up there. But a show of that magnitude, you don't want to take a chance with somebody going out there. And whoever starts the show sets the tone for the show.
Oh, wow.
So they gave me an opportunity in Detroit. And there's another guy. And the promoter, Walter Lathan, was like, if you do well here, I might let you do another one or two of them, maybe even Chicago.
Right.
I went in there and did my thing because I had been a veteran at this time. I've been in the game about 10 years. Went in, went up. I was dressed appropriately because I had a tailor. I'm wearing suits. And so they decided between me and one other guy, his name is Mike B, aka Mike Britt out of New York. 30 shows were remaining.
Wow.
And they were like, okay, we're going to let y'all split these 30 dates. But he kept coming to shows like it was the Jersey era. He wearing baseball jerseys and basketball jerseys. And they're like, you need to dress up. You're like, I ain't comfortable like that. I got to do me. They're like, okay. Do you?
Yeah, right.
And we'll do Damon. So I got the rest of the tour. So I got 30 dates, include Chicago, Madison Square Garden, New York, the Forum in LA. And I got to see this comedy thing from the mountaintop. How Martin Luther King said, I've been to the mountaintop. I saw it at the highest height level